At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a Vietnam War veteran named John Rambo, who visited a remote village in America far from the hustle and bustle of the city. Rambo's goal was to go there to meet his comrades in arms during the war in Vietnam. But unfortunately, he had to accept the shocking fact that his friend had died due to cancer. As a result, Rambo left there and walked to a town called Holidayland to look for food stalls and accommodation. In the next scene, we are introduced to the local sheriff named Will. He really enjoys his work because in this city there is no crime, which allows him to work in a relaxed manner. While on patrol, Will meets Rambo, whose face is worn and wearing a U.S. Army jacket. Seeing his appearance like that, Will thought that Rambo was a homeless person who could cause problems. So Will told Rambo to get into his car and drive him out of this area of town.
That's me getting something here?
Yeah, I don't want guys like you in this town. Drifters.
Arriving at the border, Rambo was taken out of the car and warned not to return to this city. But Rambo, who was stubborn and just wanted to find food and shelter, decided to walk back to town. Will, who saw it, of course felt annoyed. So he immediately arrested Rambo and took him to the police station.
Hey, Will.
When he got there, Rambo was examined and interrogated. And when asked in a fairly high tone, he immediately remembered his dark days during the war in Vietnam, which made him very traumatized. Rambo, who feels he is innocent, of course does not accept their attitude. In fact, he was beaten and cleaned like a criminal. Not only did he receive intimidation, Rambo was also treated arbitrarily, as if he had never made any contribution to his country. They do that because they don't know who Rambo really is, who was a veteran of the most brutal war, who could kill them all in an instant. When he was about to have his hair shaved, Rambo remembered being held captive by an enemy, which made him lose his temper. So he decided to beat them all up. After managing to escape, Rambo grabbed a motorbike and then immediately left there. Will then tells his partner to ask for help while he decides to go after Rambo. So a chase ensued. With his stolen dirt bike, Rambo escapes into the forest. But Will kept chasing him, until finally Will's car fell into a river full of rocks. Rambo continues to run into the forest to avoid Will. With his favorite knife, Rambo made warm clothing from old thick cloth he found. Feeling that he has been played with and harassed by Rambo, Will increasingly wants to catch Rambo. And he deployed a helicopter containing snipers to catch Rambo under any circumstances. Rambo, who was cornered and couldn't go anywhere anymore, desperately climbed down the very steep cliff. And the sniper saw Rambo creeping. He then told the pilot to get closer to the cliff. However, the pilot felt that this was not a good idea, because it could disrupt the helicopter's stability. But because he was threatened with being shot, he finally did it. Rambo really didn't have a choice anymore, so he did something very reckless, where he jumped off a cliff. Rambo finally decides to give up and intends to end this madness. But those good intentions were instead met with bullets, which made John Rambo finally decide to face them all.
I think we hit him. All right, let's get down there.
Not long after that, Will got news about who the person they had been chasing actually was. They were all very surprised when they heard that the person they were fighting was a former Vietnam War veteran, who already has a Green Beret and has received the highest award as a war hero.
Green Beret, Congressional Medal of Honor. Those Green Berets, they're real badass.
However, it seemed that this news did not dampen Will's intentions in the slightest. In fact, he was even more adamant about getting Rambo, especially since the sniper who had died was his best sniper. And he wants to catch Rambo with his own hands. And he also didn't want to report this to the state police because he wanted his name to become even more famous if he caught Rambo as a criminal.
Give a goddamn what's on its way. I want that chopper.
But Will didn't realize that his decision would actually put his men in danger. Using bloodhounds, Will and his men went deeper into the forest. They split up to look for John Rambo.
Go get him, sweethearts!
Meanwhile, Rambo, who knew the police were coming, was also preparing to face them. Armed with combat experience and expertise in guerrilla warfare tactics, John Rambo went into action. One by one, Rambo can paralyze Will's men very easily. Where Will made a big mistake hunting Rambo because they were clearly no match for him. Rambo warns Will to stop chasing him, because if he wanted to act more brutally, he could have killed Will and all his men. But here Rambo is still kind and only hurts them without having to take their lives, because this is still a warning.
Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe. I could have killed them all.
This incident immediately received attention from the media crew. So the state police and a colonel from the special forces were dispatched just to arrest Rambo.
Colonel Samuel Troutman.
The colonel explains that he was the person who trained Rambo and sent him to war. And finally, Rambo becomes a killing machine. He also suggests that we'll stop these arrests because Rambo is an expert in guerrilla warfare who ignores pain and has the ability to survive in the wilderness. The colonel considers that Rambo is the best of the best soldiers.
I came here to rescue you from him.
Will, who felt proud and didn't want to stop the arrest, actually ignored the colonel's orders. He even asked for help from the National Guard troops to catch Rambo sooner or later.
And then hope he gets picked up in Seattle.
Well, Rambo was the best. Good supply of body bags.
On the other hand, Rambo, who had taken the sniper's communication device, contacted them via radio communication. Will asks the colonel to talk to Rambo while he will track down the position where Rambo is hiding.
This is Colonel Troutman.
Rambo!
Here Rambo explains that all of this happened because Will and his men started it. He came to this city just to visit his friend and look for food. But Will caught him and treated him like a criminal. The colonel tries to persuade Rambo and asks him to surrender. But Rambo firmly refused because they were the ones causing this problem, and their communication was cut off.
Be no trouble except for that king shit cop. Oh, they drew first blood.
From their conversation, Will and his men managed to track Rambo's position, who was hiding in the forest. The next morning, the country's special forces were sent to explore the forest where Rambo was hiding. They were actually afraid to face Rambo, but because of orders they were forced to do it. Elsewhere, Rambo accidentally meets a boy who is hunting with his father. Rambo almost hurt the child. Then he left the child alone. But the boy returned to his father and said that he had seen Rambo. and the hunters immediately fired their weapons, which made the troops realize that Rambo was there.
This way, let's go!
Rambo ran back to his hiding place, and the troop leader directed all his men to shoot at Rambo's place. But of the many shots, none of them hit Rambo's body. And that is clearly a waste that has no results.
Come on, guys, shoot!
Because none of his men dared to shoot again. The troop leader also fired his rocket launcher as a last resort to finish off Rambo.
Bo, it's your last chance to come out. Yeah! Leave that man.
Will, who wasn't satisfied if he hadn't seen Rambo's body, ordered the troops to dig the hole again and get Rambo's body out of there.
Buried in a hole by a bunch of goddamn weekend warriors.
Will and Colonel Trotman return to town and enjoy a cup of coffee on a fairly cold evening. Here Will tells Colonel Trotman that he actually wants to finish off Rambo with his own hands and in his own way.
Oh, I wanted to kill him so bad I could taste it.
Apparently, Rambo still survived the rocket fire this afternoon. He, with his war experience, could use anything to make a fire, to comb the cave, and find a way out of there. After successfully leaving the cave, Rambo looked for the main road, and luckily there was a truck carrying M60 weapons, or heavy automatic weapons. Rambo then hijacked the car and drove towards the city of Hololand to take revenge on Will. However, on the way, a police car discovered Rambo's whereabouts, so a chase ensued. With his driving skills, Rambo managed to make the police car swerve and hit another car. On the other hand, Will gets news that Rambo is still alive and is heading to town. This news, of course, made Will feel nervous, because he realized that Rambo would definitely come back to hunt him. Therefore, Will mobilizes all his men to intercept Rambo at the border. Saw the police forming a defensive formation, but Rambo decided to keep going. When he arrived in town, Rambo immediately took a heavy weapon, namely the M60. Then blew up a gas station with the aim of angering Will and teaching him a lesson. And it's true that Will is increasingly ambitious about killing Rambo and orders his men to evacuate the residents around the crime scene.
Watch yourself! We're all gonna...
Not long after, the colonel warned Will one last time to stop capturing Rambo and let him live freely. But again Will did not listen to the colonel's orders and would continue with his intentions. To prove to the residents and his subordinates that he is one of the people who has a big influence in this region.
This is my job, Troutman. This is my town.
Due to the explosion made by Rambo, the sheriffs immediately left the office because they realized that Rambo would come there. Will climbs the building and faces Rambo alone. Knowing that, Rambo immediately shot at all the electrical substations so that the area would become dark. This clearly made Will even more panicked because he couldn't see anything. While Rambo easily moves into the office to knock out Will, when Rambo was about to finish off Will, the colonel suddenly came to stop him and stop him from doing any damage. The colonel asks Rambo to surrender because the police have surrounded the place. But Rambo doesn't care and will fight them all because they were the ones who started it and have to accept the consequences.
It's over.
Nothing is over!
Here Rambo reveals that he feels disappointed because when he returned from the battlefield he was treated unfairly. People chased him away and insulted him like a tramp. Even though on the battlefield many soldiers and their friends had died serving the country.
I do this 7 years. Every day hurts.
The colonel tried to calm Rambo and promised to protect him. And finally John Rambo surrendered himself, escorted by the colonel. And the movie is over. Thank you for watching. Look forward to the next video.